Well, you made it through the second day. I see the faces are becoming softer. The smiles are a little bit easier to come by. It's almost like fasting. The first few days are difficult. Even if you have done retreats for a long time, the first 3 days usually, by day 4 something else happens, generally speaking. But there are those among us who were the first day already, it's like coming back home. It feels like that. It teaches you intimacy, the true meaning of the word intimacy, or the feeling of intimacy with yourself. The world demands that you become intimate with someone, with friends, with a significant other, but they never teach you how to become intimate with yourself. There's no course like that. There's no college course, there's no subject for you to study as such. So it takes tremendous courage for the person to say, I want to be alone, secluded with yourself. It is a richness that you're inviting into your life, a richness that nothing could give you, nothing else other than you. You have to facilitate, and that's what you're doing. If you do the metta practice correctly, your practice will grow in leaps and bounds, unlike anything you've ever experienced before, if you've ever done meditation. Leaps and bounds. You never thought that would be possible for you. There were tangible reasons for people to come to listen to Lord Buddha, to get a technique and to go and to practice. Suddenly they are so driven to put more and more and more and more, invest more and more energy and time. People have given up their whole careers, their families. No, that's not what's going to be something in your case, like you're giving up. I know that's always a background people are afraid of. Does that mean I'm going to become a nun, a monk, or shave my head? No, that's that's actually the last thing. I discourage people from becoming monks and nuns now. It's difficult, very difficult to do that. It's not synonymous with being a practitioner, a fully fledged, driven practitioner. And that's why I always insist on you looking upon yourselves as lay people, having the same tools, if not more, to attain the highest goals of the holy life. But you cannot do it with a mindset that is a sometimes affair. I'll do this when I remember it. I'll practice sati when I have the opportunity. Many lay people still think like that, and they look upon a bhikkhu or a monk as, that's the life, look at that. I want to be, shaved head in a monastery. I want to do this. I want to be in a... All idealism, romantic imagery that doesn't have much to do with real life, the ground that you're stepping on. Is it possible? Of course it is. But how difficult? Can you sustainably maintain that? And survive. That's another thing. Now, as a lay person, you have all the facilities, all the tools to be able to do that. The Dhamma is available now. So please don't have this conditional mindset in you that if my situation allows me, then I will go deeper into the Dhamma. That's always in the background of a lay person's mind. Sometime or another it's going to show up. And when you're not giving 100%, guess what is your justifying factor? Limiting belief. Well, if I were a nun, if I were a monk, it would have been a totally different scenario. That's just deception. That is Mara. That is Mara. Because it holds you back. It doesn't allow you to see yourself going all the way. And I'm here trying to say, you can't go all the way. I'm not the first one saying it. My inspiration is Lord Buddha. You see it all the time. So this is not something new that I'm saying. Wrong view is at the core. If you are not an arahant yet, it is due to wrong view. Plain and simple. We always brush off. We always jump through the Eightfold Path. We're like, yeah, right view. Yeah, let's move on. Right speech. Okay, that's a little bit more relatable. I can understand. Right action. Okay, I can. Right livelihood. Okay, so I'm not supposed to sell guns, drugs, this. So people can find that a little bit more tangible, more palatable, more acceptable, more doable. The right view is a little bit difficult to grasp, to touch, to grope, to see what it is, its dimensions, what is it? When you're not seeing the Dhamma, when you're not seeing the truth of a situation, it means you don't have right view. And when you're facilitating for yourself a space and time, creating this opportunity for you, you're making room for right view to happen. But for that, you need to practice, and that's why we have Samma Sati. Samma, the right mindfulness. There's many wrong types of mindfulness. That's why Lord Buddha came up with Samma. What does Samma mean? For every single one of the 8, Lord Buddha placed Samma. Why? Well, what does it designate? Sammaditthi. Every step of the way is pointing the finger back to, hey, come over here. Do you remember the first one? That's what it is. I'm reminding you of. Sammaditthi has to be there in the samadhi factor, in the sati factor, in the vayama factor, in the effort, in the livelihood, ajiva, kammanta, vacha, sankappa. Every one of these has to be drenched in sammaditthi. And if we don't have today as many arahants or noble disciples even in the world today, it is because many are missing the boat. Many are completely ignoring sammaditthi. That's what I've been saying since I came to Asia, since I came to Malaysia. People have gathered junk, so many teachings, so many teachers. And with that comes the unwillingness to commit, unwillingness to go all the way, because you're safe. Well, I have teachings from here, I have teachings from there, I have teachings, and you've memorized a lot, which is a great thing, if it has practicality behind it, application behind it. You cannot be on several different roads at the same time, folks. Forget it. It doesn't work. In Los Angeles, we have numerous freeways. Big, wide, 8-lane freeways, huge, that go for miles. You could take one of these freeways to take you to wherever you want to go. But you could take another and another. But you cannot be on several at the same time. That clearly yells out, screams at you that you have wrong view. But we don't want to hear that, do we? I've said it again and again. Individuals at the time of Lord Buddha, contemporaries of his, students of his, did not know even this much of the suttas that you know, this much of the techniques that you know. But they became arahants. And no, don't use the karmic card over here by saying, oh, they had merits, Bhante, they had special merits, that's why they were born at the time of Lord Buddha, da 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 da. No. No. They were just like you and I. They saw what they wanted, they committed to it. Why? Because they had samvega, urgency. If you have the urgency, you find that one road. You say, I don't need any other roads. I found it. This is going to take me to that destination. Let's go. But people get bored. We are so easily bored. We like distraction. That's why humanity today is far more restless than any time in human history that I know of, that in documented history that I've been exposed to, researching and things. We're just restless, and in fact, it's an addiction. If you're not restless, you're feeling guilty. And we have brought that mindset into the Dhamma. Oh, do you know the Sutta? Oh, yes. Do you know Anguttara Nikaya? Yeah. Oh, but do you know the Sangyutta Nikaya? Oh, there's some suttas there. How about the Digha Nikaya? Oh, those are the big ones. Oh, how have you gone over the commentaries? Have you studied the Abhidhamma? Oh, you haven't. Ah, you don't know nothing. All this kind of craziness going around. And then we go shopping for teachers. And usually they have to be celebrities. Come on. They have to be big names. You're not going to go to some lame teacher, unknown teacher somewhere. There's these things happening in the world. What are we doing? We live as if we have forever to live. A few days ago, I found out about a friend who also happened to be almost like a family. And it was through the grapevine, in a sense. I found out that people were saying, we lost you. You were such a beautiful person and you're dead. So I quickly reached out to her, sent her a message. Are you okay? Knowing that there would never be a response back from her. Because she's gone. She's dead. Young, relatively. Barely 40. She had the whole life in front of her. Gone. Right? So these things we have to take into consideration, that death is always sitting over here, watching you, breathing. If you don't hear your heartbeat, you better hear death's heartbeat or heaving. I'm here. I'm here. Not to terrify you, but just to make you become more realist. The Dhamma is all about realism. So calm down from your clouds as to what Dhamma is supposed to be. Because this is also one of the main problems where people make such a big deal about the metta, complicate it further more than it is. It's very simple. Feel good, share it. Feel good and share it. In fact, you don't even have to go out and share it with someone. A candle, when it's lit, it doesn't send its rays out, okay, I'm going to push the light towards you. It doesn't. You just light the candle and it does the rest. The same with metta. You just have to think of your spiritual friend and that's it. And you don't have to think about them and visualize them 90% of the time. No. 1 or 3% maximum of the energy. Every once in a while you need to see if it is it the same friend? Okay. This is target practice. When I say that first to people, like, what do you mean? First of all, we don't know how it feels often to feel metta in your heart towards yourself. This is not pointing fingers at people that were supposed to give you love, they didn't hug you enough, this and that. It's not about that. It's not about blaming anyone. This is about taking ownership of your life and giving yourself what you need. If the plant is dying of lack of water, you give it some water. If it needs some light, you put it closer to the window, get it some light. That's what you're doing when you're giving yourself metta. And it feels amazing. And what does the plant do? Suddenly it shoots out oxygen. It's bound to do that. It doesn't take out oxygen molecules and toss it at you. It's just releasing it. It's inevitable. So in essence, when I'm saying about the spiritual friend, that is the water spilling from the brim of the cup. Because you're filling it up constantly with metta. And no, it doesn't stay like that forever. It will transform. But you need to be trusting the process. Instead of always poking and poking and poking, I give the example of a souffle often. A souffle needs typically 45 minutes in the oven. 45 minutes uninterrupted. That means you're not opening up the oven door. If you do, poof, there goes the souffle, flat. You know, the kitchen is a wonderful place to learn Dhamma. I always discover something about the Dhamma. So it's no different than your life. So come down, just come back down to earth. Give yourself some metta, learn how it feels. But that comes with the trust. You're not here to gain something, to earn something, something being added to you. In fact, it is an unfolding. It's a discovery. And you have everything you need. You have actually more than what you need. You have. And plus, when I'm going over the suttas with you, this is not extra information for you necessarily. This is, however, an extra opportunity for you to feel a connection with the Dhamma. That's why it's so crucial for you to really allow the words of Lord Buddha or the Arya Salakas to land into your heart. It's like the rain on a scorched land. The drops come in and it just absorbs it like a sponge. Wonderful things happen. Many, many people became arahants just by listening to the Dhamma. How they listened, that's the key. The Dhamma is beautiful, it's complete, it's incomparable. But it is for each of us to discover that. It is not the result of a lot of data, added. No. It's something you experience intuitively. So this retreat, I would love for you to think of it as a training for you to develop more and more trust towards your intuition, towards yourself. That's what I understand as resiliency, as sustainability, as power, as perfection. Because one of the words that Lord Buddha uses for the bhikkhu, or for the person who becomes an arahant, is that they reached perfection. Perfection, because they have now understood. It's a path of understanding. Panya, understanding. It's not just wisdom. Be encouraged. You're not alone. You're never alone. This sutta is that we'll be covering today. It is the Tissabrahmā Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Sevens, Sutta number 56, Book of the Sevens. So In the suttas, I just discovered, it wasn't intentional, but I discovered today that a few of the suttas this week, on this retreat that I'll be covering with you, will have Venerable Maha Moggallana in it. So, tonight's included. And oftentimes people think of Venerable Maha Moggallana as the student who was the par excellence #1 in psychic abilities. And he was. He was second only to the Buddha. However, oftentimes they forget the level of wisdom he had. Because we always think about Venerable Sariputta. But he was also like a powerful guardian of the Dhamma. He would listen and then he would go and challenge usually other beings who would come and listen to the Dhamma discourses. He would go to check them out to see how intent were they when they were asking the question. He would be sneaking around afterwards, just actually not sneaking around, he would just go literally and ask them, as we will discover in a few days in the, I think it's the Chula Tanghankaya Sutta. But in this one, he's curious. I appreciate Venerable Maha Moggallana's presence also for the fact that he also gave us glimpses of the other realms. And he brought it down to earth in a sense, to make it more normal. Not otherworldly, because people think, oh, devas, they're so otherworldly, they're like beyond us and our problems and our proclivities and our weaknesses and tendencies. No, you see that they're just in a different sort of body. They have their own weaknesses, they have their own seeking after pleasure tendencies, their own ignorance, as well as wisdom in some cases. Because many of the devas have attained Sotapatti, Sakadagami, Anagami, even Arahantship. And there's also a reason why I would love to talk more or give suttas, talk about suttas that involve the devas, because I see in this very materialistic, reductionistic way of thinking, the world that we have today and where it's going, that we have individuals in very powerful positions that guide humanity, in a sense, that are steering us towards the direction of mechanization. We are being seen as no more than machines. Some people flat out get on TV and loudspeakers say that we are ultimately machines. Things are happening randomly, that sort of thing. They're completely stealing from us the beauty of the intuitive capacity of the heart. Awakening. It's very reductionistic, it's sad, in fact, to be a human being who thinks like that, where they find that human being is actually less than. That's why they want to bring a human being and put it next to a robot, some type of an AI, for us to be complete, to be perfect. They're completely wrong. To talk about wrong view. So today's world, people in powerful positions are promulgating, are advocating ideas that are completely Dhamma. And one of them, actually, I've seen, claims that he's even a Vipassana practitioner. One of the philosophers that is advocating for this transhumanism and all this AI, human beings will be lost in 100 years agenda. He's not alone. So the Buddhist world is not prepared for any of this. We're not talking about any of this. Now, I'm not saying we need to get up in arms and go and go on rallies. No. At least from your side, know what the Dhamma is trying to help you with. You don't need to be going with the stream, with the current that the world is going downhill with. The Dhamma is enough of protection. You don't need to have unnecessary, redundant, anxiety-causing sorts of protective mechanisms in play, which are actually futile. The Dhamma is all the protection you need because it gives you wisdom, and you'll know what to do with that wisdom. The Arahants knew this. And knowing about the Devas allows you to have a bigger and wider expanse in your thinking, in the possibilities, instead of just looking at this life and this is what it is and that's it, type of a thing, which is spread out all around the world. I thought it was just in the West, in America, in the United States, but it's not. I've seen it in Australia, I've seen it in Europe, I've seen it here. Everybody's copying each other, and the easiest thing to copy is wrong view. Doesn't take much. It's like rumors. It's like papanchas, proliferation, like fire, wildfire. All it needs is a trigger, just some match. Poof, and that's it. Forests that have been growing for thousands of years are up in smoke, gone. So your protection in the future is going to be dependent on your protection of the Dhamma in your heart, plain and simple. That's it. So this one is, the sutta is Tissabrahmā Sutta, Tissa, the Brahma. Anguttara Nikaya, Book 7, Sutta number 56. This is what I personally heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying among the Gijja peaks in Rajagha, the Vulture's Peak. With the night having far advanced, two devas approached the Blessed One as they illuminated the whole of the entire Gijja peaks with a resplendent light. And after paying homage to the Blessed One, they stood to one side. While standing, one of the devas addressed the Blessed One thus: by the way, devas don't walk on ground. Every time, however, they would come to Lord Buddha, or in the presence of any of the Arahants, to still be floating, if you will, would be highly disrespectful. It's like the deva showing off, and it's disrespectful. So what the deva would do, out of respect, they would touch the ground. That's why they say stood. In other suttas where you see a human being come paying respect, they bow down. But of course the devas also bow, but they by nature are not touching the ground. But they will touch the ground in the presence of Lord Buddha. And that is their way of showing respect. And they have to also dim out their radiance. Because some of the devas are very radiant, especially when they would come into the Jeta monastery, let's say the Anathapindika park, they would light up the whole place. Some of them more than others, depending on their merits and what level of devas they're from. But they cannot keep on radiating that light that intensely in the presence of an Arahant, because they know that that would be highly disrespectful. But if we're talking about a deva who's not aware, first of all, they wouldn't even show up. Or if they do show up, it's for tempting. Like you have some stories where some devas showed up and they see a beautiful, let's say, whom they consider to be a beautiful human, whether a male or a female, and they say, well, what are you doing dressed up in a bhikkhu's robes, in a bhikkhuni's robe? You have so much like possibilities. Go, leave the monastic life. So you have those devas too. They would come and try to, because they are lost in lust. So you have all these different categories of devas. But unfortunately, we think of devas as just supreme, holy. They're not all of them. They're just like human beings, because you have holy people, human beings amongst you in the world. So similarly with the devas. So they touch the ground out of respect. So one of the devas addressed the Blessed One thus: Bhante, these bhikkhunis are liberated. That means they are observing, they know. You can call it telepathy, but it's knowing with one's own mind or with one's own chitta the other person's chitta. That's another way of saying it, and we see it in Pali. Meanwhile, the other deva added, Bhante, these bhikkhunis are liberated without having any residual defilements left in them. That means they are perfect arahants. The term is saupadisesa and anupadisesa. Saupadisesa means with residues remaining. That means they still have the panchakanda in them. Panchakanda upadana, because they still have some residues there. But with the anupadisesa, no residues remaining, that means they don't have anything. It's like just poof, the light goes out, that's it. They're perfect arahants. Having said so and given their testimony, the two devas stood waiting for the approval of the teacher. And that's another thing. Devas did not just show off that we are able to see the hearts of humans. Not just any human, but enlightened, awakened beings. Because some devas will see this. They will be very... What I encourage you to do when you're doing sila, when you're practicing sila, is not just do it for your fellow human beings. The devas, if you're practicing well, they are always somehow, few of them might be around you, especially in a place like this, in a time period like this. They're checking your level of sila. It's just like you going to a library to check out a book. You're a curiosity for them. You're like a walking book for them. They will look into your heart, see how much of your sila is actually pure. Is there sila? Because they're of such a level, and they have had plenty of practice, many of them. These two devas happen to be a few of those. So don't think that you can actually hide your skills or your defilements. That's why it's important for you to be pure. If you break a sila, a precept, don't go hiding it. Acknowledge it. And then tell yourself, would I do this again if I have the same conditions presenting themselves? And if your answer is no, go ahead. Retake the precept. That's like a clean slate. You start again. You're always, it's like a redo. So having said so and given their testimony, the two devas stood waiting for the approval of the teacher. So they would wait for Lord Buddha to confirm. And the way Lord Buddha would confirm is through his silence. He wouldn't say, yes, you are right. Rarely do you see that in the suttas, in situations like this. Once knowing that the teacher had approved of what they reported, they bowed to the Blessed One, and after circumambulating him, they vanished from the vulture's peak. So Lord Buddha would smile, nod, but he would do so in silence. And that's enough of an approval for them. They would know. And plus the devas would also be able to see the mind of Lord Buddha. They would know his level as well. So don't think that unless Lord Buddha would want to block it, and there's instances where he would do that. But generally speaking, the way I've seen it throughout the suttas, the devas who are able to indicate this one is an arahant, this one is not, this one has residues remaining, this one does not, they're also able to see the level of attainment. And oftentimes you have many suttas where the devas would go and whisper to Lord Buddha, by the way, this arahant made it. This student, they made it. They became an arahant. They would immediately, or he's about to, or she's about to become an arahant. She's about to become an anagami. You have these examples throughout the suttas. And if you remember from I think it was the Chula Gosinga Sutta, where when Lord Buddha came to ask Venerable Anuruddha, Kimbila, and Nandiya about their attainments, and Venerable Anuruddha goes and says, speaks for them. Yes, Bhante, we have reached that. Yes, Bhante, we have reached that stage. Yes, Bhante, we don't have any residues remain. And then they're not saying anything, the other two bhikkhus, until they walk Lord Buddha to the gate of the garden. And then they turn towards Venerable Anuruddha and they say, we don't recall ever telling you where which level we have attained. And he says, oh, I just looked into your hearts. I just looked into your mind. Plus, he says, even if I didn't, the devas had already told me. So this is not like cute stories, things like that. These things do happen. These things do happen. So then once morning had arrived, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, earlier today with the night having far advanced, the two devas approached me, so he repeats the whole thing. And once knowing that I approved of what they reported, they bowed to me, and after circumambulating me, they vanished from the vulture's peak. Now, at that instance, the following thought occurred to the Venerable Maha, who was seated close to the Blessed One. It would be interesting to know which category of devas could identify a person with residual defilements left in them as those with residues remaining, and those without having any residual defilements left in them as those without residues remaining. So it would be interesting to know which devas, which category of devas are able to do this, to know this. And so let me continue. It was during this time that recently a bhikkhu named Tissa had just died and reappeared in one of the Brahma worlds. And the Venerable Mahamoggalana concluded how Tissa, now being a very powerful Brahma god, might very well have the answer to his question. So, just like a strong and agile person would quickly extend or flex his arms, so too the Venerable Mahamoggalana disappeared from the Gijja peaks and instantaneously appeared in the Brahma world. Brahmatissa, on seeing the Venerable Mahamoggalana approaching in the distance, exclaimed, "Welcome, pure and respected Moggallana, welcome. It has been a long time that you gave us the opportunity to see you visit this world. Please take a seat, for your seat is ready here." Once seated on his prepared seat, the Brahmatissa paid homage to him and then sat to one side. The Venerable Mahamoggalana then said to Tissa, the Brahma, "Which category of devas, Tissa, could identify a person with residual defilements left in them, as those with residues remaining, and those without having any residual defilements left in them, as those without residues remaining?" "Those would be the devas that are in Brahma's retinue," replied Tissa. Very quickly he's giving the response, while also adding, "They are the ones that possess such knowledge and understanding, pure and respected Moggallana. Brahma's retinue, whether you're talking about Sakka, the king of the gods of the 33, Tavatinsa heaven, or the Brahma gods, they have their own retinue of gods, lesser in authority, less in position, less in their radiance, less in their wisdom. But he's saying even those individuals, beings, devas, in Brahma's retinues, because you have, in Brahma worlds, you have different Brahmas, and they have their own devas around them. They're not called Brahmas, but they're called the devas in that Brahma's retinue. So those or such devas have the ability. And being the curious person that Venerable Maha was, he has a follow-up question. And do all the devas in Brahma's retinue possess such knowledge and understanding? Asked the Venerable Maha. Not all devas, pure and respected Moggallana, replied Tissa, the Brahma, as he added, the knowledge and ability to identify a person with residual defilements left in them, as those with residues remaining and those without them, is not possessed by all the devas in Brahma's retinue. So he starts from the Brahma realm, the retinue, the companions of those who are the attendants of the Brahma gods, and now we're going to see him coming lower and lower and lower to different levels beneath or below those levels of devas or Brahma gods. You see, pure and respected Moggallana, all those devas who become content and gratified with the lifespan of being a Brahma god, along with the beauty, happiness, fame, and sovereignty of being a Brahma, they do not know nor have the ability to identify a person with residual defilements left in them. So they took it personally. I'm a Brahma god. Whoa, I finally made it. They couldn't care less who's an arahant, who's not. They are in ecstasy. They have everything, in a sense. It's like individual. We've been talking a few times about nobility in human beings, simply because we use the term noble, or somebody who's rich, or somebody who wears beautiful clothing, somebody who wears white in a very prestigious position, everyone respects. That doesn't mean they're holy. Somebody who has titles doesn't mean that they are truly wise. So you have the same thing. It's just basically to be reborn as a Brahma, in the Brahma realm. You just need to have done some certain actions, some good karma. That's it. It's not a big deal. This is hugely different when you think about the context of where Lord Buddha was, what time period, and what these cosmology or factors of cosmology, teachings on cosmology were available at the time of Lord Buddha. But he completely turned it over its head because they believed that the Brahma gods were eternal. They wouldn't die. In fact, not only will they die, but oftentimes they will go to the lowest of realms because they have been lost to the beauty and happiness and the joy that they're experiencing in those realms. But pure and respected Moggallana, all those devas who become disenchanted with the lifespan of being a Brahma god, disenchanted, they really don't care that they have a few 100 million years to live, or a few billion years to live. Brahma gods. We're talking about Mahakalpas. The lowest is about half a Mahakalpa. Half. That means the Big Bang. That means the expansion of the universe. That means the point where it comes to that stop. It's like a tennis ball. When you toss it, there's a momentary pause. That's also the same length of time. And then the big crunch, back to that point of singularity. You put those four together, you have a Mahakalpa. So far the universe is about 14.6 or 7 billion years old, I think. And it's still going to expand. So we haven't even reached 1/4 full length of a Mahakalpa. It's a long time. So they're disenchanted by it. It's a chore. It's like, So there are devas just like human beings who are disenchanted. So for those devas, it's very easy to identify who has residual defilements left and who doesn't. Not all Brahmas have that. It is they who have the knowledge and the ability to identify a person with residues left in them. Here, pure and respected Moggallana, let us consider a bhikkhu who is liberated in both respects, through wisdom and attainment of the higher jhanas. That means all 8 jhanas. They have been, so think of it as samatha path and also the jhanic path, the vipassana path, if you want to think of it in those terms. Wisdom path, satipatthana, where you're always looking at the Vedana, chittanupassana, kayanupassana, dhammanupassana. You're looking at anicca, dukkha, anatta in everything you look at, and you see it. It will crack the egg, the delusion. So these, like Venerable Anuruddha, like Venerable Sariputta, Maha, they were arahants in both ways. Not only the 8 jhanas, but actually the 9th, cessation of feeling and perception. They had that. So when they say in both respects, now these devas will know and identify him thus, when the devas see such a person. This Bhante is released in both respects. They will know it. And they will talk about it. And so long as he is alive in this body, he will remain visible to both us, devas and humans. However, after the breakup of the body, such a bhikkhu will no longer be visible to either of us, devas and humans. Thus, pure and respected Moggallana, these devas would identify a person with residual defilements left in them, as those with residues remaining, and those without as no residues remaining. Further, pure and respected Moggallana, let us consider a bhikkhu who is liberated through wisdom only, so no jhanas. Now these devas will know and identify him thus. This Bhante is liberated through wisdom only. They will identify. And so long as he is alive in this body, he will remain visible to both of us, devas and human. However, after the breakup of the body, such a bhikkhu will no longer be visible to either one of us, because they're liberated. That means they die, that's it. Poof, gone. There is no consciousness to land upon. There's no nama rupa. There's no craving. Nothing. No substrate for the dust to settle on. That's why even devas will no longer be able to find him. One of the worst things that Mara is afraid of is that happening. And in the suttas you have examples of this, where Mara is thinking of, oh, this person is dying and is sick, or but Mara doesn't know the level of attainment, especially when the person closes their eyes for the last time. And Mara keeps looking for them in the different realms, the 31 realms, especially hell. He can't find them. And that is one of the worst nightmares for Mara. Every time you go into a jhana, I was mentioning it to some of you, one of you today. Every time you go into it, even the first jhana, if you go into the first jhana, Mara cannot touch you. That's an unknown territory. It's inaccessible to Mara. Have you ever thought of that? If you go into a jhana. In fact, I would even go so far as to say, even when you go deep into metta practice, when you become metta, it's so foreign, Mara will not be able to identify that. There's no relationship to it that he has. So, this is not some Hollywood story. This is not a fairy tale. And when you're practicing, at least allow yourself the capacity to say, well, I haven't experienced it, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's not possible for me. You have to give yourself that room. That room of growth. That's what I mean by trust. If you don't think that you deserve metta, how in the world can you even give it to somebody else? How can you really feel metta? So many of us have this limiting belief, limitation. We are struggling with us deserving of metta, I see, when I interview people. Further, pure and respected Moggallana, let us consider a bhikkhu who is a body witness, having attained to the jhanas, and although possessing wisdom, he still has some defilements remaining. Now these, by the way, body witness, this is sometimes created confusion for many people. Kaya Sakhi in Pali. What it is basically a person who's experienced the 4 jhanas, the rupa jhanas, plus at least one of the arupa jhanas. And then you have in the Abhidhamma and also Visuddhimagga that are very much connected, they've added that you also have to have the cessation, Sanya Vedayita Nirodha Samapatti, to be, in this category. However, it is a person who has not yet become an arahant. Okay? That's one interpretation which is massively accepted by scholars, which I don't feel it's the full story of what the body witness is. There needs to be a connection with the body. Venerable Anuruddha was known to use the body a lot. Venerable Ananda became an arahant with the help of the body. Oftentimes we have this fight against the body. I want to beat my body into sitting long. I want to do this with the body. It's almost like, we're back to square one. Siddhartha Gautama for 6 years torturing himself. We're there. Well, come on, there's got to be some difference. I mean, what did he do for 45 years trying to show us? Where's that softness? The middle path, what, have you ever heard of that? Middle path, Majjhima Pada, what is that all about? So the body is also the key. So if you're having difficulty with feeling metta towards your friend, that means that you're not feeling metta towards, at the very least, towards your body. So next time you have a numbness, next time you have some pain in your body, look at the very first sensation that comes in. And what does that do in terms of feelings? What type of a feeling does that generate? Does it generate hate? Displeasure, pain, and now I have a relationship towards the body. I don't love the body. I don't appreciate the body. There's no metta for the body. Meanwhile, I'm trying to squeeze metta into the heart. How does that work? It's an oxymoron. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. So, if you hit that roadblock, as it were, come back to the body. Give yourself some metta. When you're having a backache, make sure you're sending metta to your back, specifically to that part of your back. Maybe your eyes hurt. Maybe your neck hurts. The body is the closest thing to us, and we never seem to use it wisely. So that is how I understand body witness. Because eventually, you will, as you go into the immeasurable states, or infinity of space, or infinity of consciousness, those are the arupa jhanas, you will no longer be connected with the body. If you really go deep, unless someone comes and shakes you, touches you, otherwise you don't feel. So These devas will know and identify him thus. This Bhante, who is a body witness, if he resorts to secluded and beneficial places for practice, while being supported by good spiritual friends and conducts himself appropriately and diligently, works to purify his mental faculties, then he will attain that for which good people leave the home life and go forth into living the life of a monastic, to reach the ultimate goal of the holy life, which this bhikkhu would undoubtedly reach. They have that assurance. They know that if this person goes and secludes themselves, finds the right company, kalyana mittas, they're going to make it. See, even if you have doubts, there are devas that don't about you. You are here today. You might think, oh, Bhante, this is too much. Come on, take it easy. Come down a few notches, you know. You're here today because of your merits. Yes, your intentions have a lot to do with this, but don't be surprised to hear that there were other forces also helping you to come to this place, because the world needs this. Some of you came through much hardship. You're here. Some of you have been struggling with physical pain, with hurt, with emotional hurt, with different kinds of pain, frustrations, disappointments, all of which can become deterrents, can make you say, I don't need this Dhamma stuff. But then there are those beings who see into your heart, see the potentialities in you, much more than you could, much better than some of your closest friends would. And suddenly they will coax you, they will guide you. You will suddenly see this book somewhere, this mention of this Ajahn, this teacher, the Buddha. Suddenly you might turn around and see something, or get, somebody to send you a link to a video or a talk, a sutta. You think, oh, it's just happening haphazardly, something just like that. No, don't be surprised. Most often than not, there are these beings who are truly helping us. So you've been here, you're brought here in a sense. So it's not just your merits that have brought you here, or just your intentions. So those were part of it. I just felt like saying that. So you take it with a grain of salt, or a bucket of salt. Because we see many times throughout the suttas where the devas are involved in helping. There was one novice, I've talked about him in previous sutta classes with the international group, where the novice is Venerable Sariputta's student. And he's just a kid. And Venerable Sariputta gives him an instruction. And he had Venerable Sariputta's bowl with him. So he was his kappiya in a sense. And the novice stops. He says, how can I go on Pindapada right now? This is not the right time. My Bhante gave me instructions. I have to go and meditate. This is serious stuff. But because of his past kammas, this young boy would always get food offered to him with 100 different flavors, because he had done work. He had done work, and he had been the recipient of such a meal. So he says, Bhante, would it be okay if I hand you back your bowl? And Venerable Sariputta, being the kind and compassionate teacher that he was, he says he knows what's happening. And he says, smiles and says, sure. And the child says, but Bhante, because I'm hungry, if you get the 100 flavored rice meal, the dish, could you please bring me some? And he says, Bhante Sariputta says, 100 flavored? it's normal for you to get that type of food? And he says, yes. And Bhante Sariputta says, okay, just go. And he says, go to my kuti, so no one disturbs you. And he goes. He goes back to the monastery, enters, because each kuti had its own key. And he has Bhante Venerable Sariputta's key, and he opens it, and he goes in, and he meditates. Venerable Sariputta goes to Pindapada, and he's invited, and he goes into a house, and they offer him a type of dish that has 100 different flavors, spices and things, very rich. Okay, Venerable Sariputta was not known for his psychic abilities, by the way. He didn't care for those. That's what we see in the suttas. But that child in the kuti goes deeper and deeper and deeper until he becomes an anagami in one sitting, from Sotapatti to anagami. Now, the devas are closely watching. In fact, they're so attentive that they quiet all the birds, all the insects. Keep it so still, absolutely quiet and silent, so that they don't disturb this young boy to becoming an arahant. So you'd think that the devas don't care for you. Every time you have some pain in the body, see if you can work through that. Give yourself some metta through it. But if it's extremely painful and you know it's physical, readjust. And then go deeper. Get a comfortable seat, but don't make that into a habit. Now Venerable Sariputta comes back. Lord Buddha knows what's happening. And he comes walking and stands in between Venerable Sariputta and his door. So Venerable Sariputta does not disturb, because Venerable Sariputta doesn't know what's happening. How deep has the child gone into his meditation? And Venerable Sariputta, Lord Buddha asks him, what do you have in there? He says, food. He says, what is food? He says, the nutriments, ahara. What are they for? Look at the sublime, incomparable teaching ability of Lord Buddha. He's asking questions to Venerable Sariputta so that it can ricochet back into the kuti as the child is meditating, because he needs to hear that. And from Venerable Sariputta's responses, the child becomes an arahant. And then Lord Buddha walks away. He sees what happened. The devas made that possible. So when you're practicing alone, invite them. Give some acknowledgement. Don't think like this is only your own battle, that you have to do this in spite of all these conditions. That's so narrow. Or you must get some answers to your questions. Oh, because they're so special questions. They're not. Okay? You just have to pull away from these questions sometimes. They're just redundant nonsense. You have to trust, because you already have the answer. You have plenty of answers, believe me. You don't need me to answer them, honestly. You just have to create space for that. Because you're getting plenty of help. Your being here is plenty, plenty of evidence for me to know you're getting a lot of help. So that's another reason for you to be hearing, listening to this sutta. Further, pure and respected Moggallana, let us consider a bhikkhu who has attained to right view. Now, these devas will know and identify him thus. This Bhante who has attained to right view, if he resorts to secluded and beneficial places for practice. By the way, the body witness could also be a Sotapanna, Sakatagami, or even an Agami. But they're not Arahants, because they still have hang-ups. Now, when we're getting to the right view, at the very least, we're talking about someone who is a Sotapanna. Because your defilements, your three fetters have dropped. That's what we usually mean when we read right view. This person has reached or attained to right view. That means there's no way you can accept any other teacher, any other teaching than the Dhamma. It doesn't make sense to you. It's like, why? So this person has attained to right view. If he resorts to secluded and beneficial places for practice while being supported by good spiritual friends, even if you don't know each other, just the space that you're creating with your own work, it's like different planets in a solar system. If you take out one planet, everyone else suffers. If something happens to one, everyone else suffers. So if any one of you is fighting, or if you're thinking things that you can consider defilement and you're hiding it, others will feel it. And you might actually disrupt their progress. So make sure your sila is pure. Okay? Keep the chit-chat in your head to a minimum, because you do affect others in their practice. And the same goes with physical movements. You know, if you have somebody who's very jittery like a June bug all the time, moving, or they're wearing the type of like clothing which, you know, the annoying kind, sounds like, or they open and close zippers and things, we know that is very disruptive. But don't think that that is the only disruptive thing. If you go to Burma, Myanmar, if you participate in meditation retreats, usually you will have people who will make a lot of bodily noises because they're bored. All kinds of noise. And it's like, what happened? Like, what? It jolts you. Unhealthy. Totally disruptive. So, but I'm saying, you go deeper, look at your mind, the quality of your thoughts, take ownership of that, and be responsible caretakers of your fellow Kalyana Mittas in this hall. Or when you're walking, you're affecting others, in a good way or a bad way. So take responsibility. And conducts himself appropriately and diligently, works to purify his mental faculties, then he will attain that for which good people leave the home life and go forth. And he repeats that whole formula. Further, pure and respected Moggallana, let us consider a bhikkhu who is liberated through faith. Now these devas will know and identify him thus. This Bhante, who is liberated through faith, if he resorts to secluded and when they say liberated, this is a special category of individuals. It didn't say right view. But in the suttas, I've come across such places where it is mentioned how, despite the fact that this person is not a Sotapanna yet, but they are set on their path. This is a special category of individuals, but they're not considered noble yet. They still have the name Putujjana attached to them. But they're the kind of Putujjana that are on the cusp, on the fence, but they're leaning towards the Arya Puggala, noble disciple, meaning Sotapanna state is very close. In fact, when they die, it's impossible, I've read some places, for them to fall into the lower realms, just like a Sotapanna. But they still don't have right view. They still need that extra nudge. That's why the devas are urging them to go into seclusion and work on that. Make sure it's locked in. All right? So that doesn't mean that they're guaranteed either, though. They need to be working on purifying the mind to get to right view. Otherwise, they would be Sotapanna. But their faith is so strong. Their faith is so strong. If you introduce to them another teacher or teaching, they will say, I can't do that. I can't do that. It's not because of right view, it's their faith. It's their faith that guides them. While being supported by good spiritual friends and conducts himself appropriately and diligently, works to purify his mental faculties, then he will attain that for which good people leave the home life and go forth into living the life of a monastic. To reach the ultimate goal of the holy life, which this bhikkhu would undoubtedly reach, and having reached it, and will dwell and abide in it as he realizes it personally himself and with his direct insight. Further, pure and respected Moggallana, let us consider a bhikkhu who is a follower of the Dhamma. Now these devas will know and identify him thus. This bhikkhu who is a follower of the Dhamma, if he resorts to secluded and beneficial places for practice, while being supported by good spiritual friends, this person has a lot of punya, a lot of merits, a lot of history with the Dhamma. That's why they're there, at a time period when there's still Dhamma. But for whatever reason, they are not practicing. But they have this strong connection with the Dhamma. They read the suttas, they get inspired even, but they don't feel compelled to commit themselves. They always have excuses not to practice. You probably know a few. And conducts himself appropriately and diligently, works to purify his mental faculties. You are here doing this, by the way. If he resorts to secluded and beneficial places for practice, while being supported by good spiritual friends, every day you're getting Dhamma. You're surrounded by individuals who are really wanting to get the most of the Dhamma and really diligently working. This is a Deva realm as far as I'm concerned. Deva realms is not just where there's plenty of pleasure and joy and things like that. There's a lot of kileshas in those realms. So, then he will attain that for which good people leave the home life and go forth into living the life of a monastic. And he repeats that. Then, after hearing this from Tissabrahmā, the Venerable Maha Moggallana was delighted and approved of what he approved of what was shared with him, and just as a strong and agile person would quickly extend or flex his arm, so too the Venerable Maha Moggallana disappeared from the Brahma world and instantaneously reappeared on the vulture's peak. Once there, the Venerable Maha Moggallana went straight to see the Blessed One, and after bowing to him and paying homage to the teacher, he recounted his entire conversation with Tissa in the Brahma world. By the way, if you ever go on a pilgrimage in India, unfortunately out of my control, that didn't work out because of my health and other reasons, but if you ever are able to go to India and go to the Gidja Peaks, Vulture's Peak, on the way there, up the steps, it's sometimes some people have a hard time going up, but they also have porters, which I found to be, I can't use that as a bhikkhu, but even as a layperson, I was like, well, I have to have my leg broken for this, or really, really old, be really old, unable to, because there's two guys really, and I would see people really heavy in those containers, what do you call them, carriages, with bamboo and then this thing, and they haul you all the way up. So, but it's a wonderful thing to do it on your own, with your own 2 feet, if you can. But on the way there, the reason why I stopped is because on the way there you will stop by 2 caves. One is for Venerable Ananda, and the other one is for Venerable Sariputta's. And then you go all the way up, and all of a sudden you're going up the steps, and then all of a sudden the vista opens up. You're at the top. And there is this remnants of a kuti, a small one. And that was Lord Buddha's. So you just have the remnants, the tracing of it, some bricks and archaeologists have placed. And there's also a place in front which they say that is the place where Lord Buddha was. Doesn't really matter. I think that was the place where Lord Buddha would give Dhamma talks because it's a nice platform. So when I saw in my mind as I'm reading this, Venerable Mahamoggalana reappearing at Vulture's Peak, you could see that scenery, you know. Just a few steps down, that's where Sariputta is. Just a few steps down, that's where Ananda is. And you can't stand up like if you're tall, you're going to hit your head because they're caves. And it's open and it's got a nice little walkway into it. So it has a very strong energy. Then the blessed, so once there, the Venerable Mahamoggalana recounted his entire conversation with Tissa in the Brahma world. Then the Blessed One said, in that case, Moggallana, it seems that Tissa did not inform you about the seventh person. Remember, this is the book of the seventh. We just went over 6. Just like yesterday with Anuruddha, it was 7 plus 8. Lord Buddha presented the 8th, which was the Nippapancha. This one is book of 7, so we got 6, and now Lord Buddha is adding number 7 to this. Tissa did not inform you about the 7th person, the one who lives with the signless, animitta. Animitta. Now is the time, Lord, this is the time, O Holy One, for us to hear from the Blessed One's lips about the 7th person, the one who lives within the signless, exclaimed the Venerable Mahamoggalana. Then listen and pay close attention to what I shall say. Yes, Bhante, replied the Venerable Mahamoggalana, and the Blessed One continued. Moggallana, by not giving attention to all and any signs that arise, the bhikkhu enters into and lives within the signless stability of mind, animitta samadhi. Now, if this bhikkhu resorts to secluded and beneficial places for practice, while being supported by good spiritual friends and conducts himself appropriately and diligently, works to purify his mental faculties, meaning sila, on all levels, adi sila as well, the higher that I was talking about yesterday, then he will attain that for which good people leave the home life and go forth into living the life of a monastic, to reach the ultimate goal of the holy life, whereby this bhikkhu would undoubtedly reach, and having reached it, will dwell and abide in, as he realizes it personally himself and with his direct insight. It is in this manner also that those devas know and identify a person with residual defilements left in them as those with residues remaining, and those without having any residual defilements left in them as those without residues remaining. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This is a wonderful sutta because I like the mention of the animitta, because while you're in meditation, you will feel sometimes, some people will see lights, different things, and we in our human culture, because it's so unusual, it's out of the ordinary, and with your eyes open sometimes you can't see them. But I mean, normal life you don't see them, but in meditation these people will see things and whatever. They're signs. Not a big deal. Pointless. Signless. Sometimes you use some, even bodily experiences. Eventually, even feeling the joy, the tingling, becomes annoying if you want to go deeper. So this is a kind of a person who makes a determination not to be satisfied with the sign, any kind of sign. Okay? So I wanted to include this to also reintroduce you to the devas and the involvement that they have, and that they are very much part of life. Unlike what you might have been told or driven to think or perceive, the Dhamma, they have a very important role in the Dhamma. You cannot have the Dhamma that Lord Buddha taught while you remove the devas. Just like some people have been pushing for removing the principle of rebirth or kamma, they're saying that's just cultural additions or things backwards, ways of thinking. Same thing they apply towards the devas, and that is wrong. So you're not alone, even when you physically are. Even when you were sitting in your cell, meditating alone, or in the night, outside, in the open air, and when it was cold, and your body was shivering. And then your thoughts came in, and the hindrances came in. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen? A monster is going to come and devour me. No one's ever died being out in the open, meditating on the Dhamma. No one. Never come across it. Even in the commentaries, I've never come across it. I mean, just...
But we do see many people, you said nobody will die if you see something or during meditation, but we do see a lot of people seems to be very knowledgeable on Dhamma, but they seems to go a little bit crazy. In certain level or insane.
Remember what I said, I think yesterday and also last week and the week before about undigested information. What is undigested food in your gut? What does that do if it remains there before it comes out? Toxic. It turns into poison. In fact, the moment you eat something, you pollute it. You made it dirty. This very expensive dish, this delicious, cheesecake, this delicious sandwich, this delicious something, fruit. The moment it touches your lips, the moment it touches your mouth, it is now dirty. Polluted, yes. Now, that's what we're doing with the Dhamma. The Dhamma doesn't get polluted on its own. The teachings can, and they have been. That's why many people, when they hear the Dhamma, they're already sifting through what is acceptable, what is not. I agree with this. No, I don't agree with that. My teacher said, no, there is this is wrong. They have a notebook, they have a notepad, and they're taking notes. If not actually, mentally. No one listens with their heart. So they're polluting the Dhamma that's coming their way. And not only that, they add more. Undigested food. It's like carrying menus, like I said during the Kalama Sutta. Somebody who's terribly hungry goes to a restaurant. Instead of ordering the food that's on the menu, he pays for the menu and walks out, thinking that they have eaten because they're holding on to the menu. That's what we're doing. Such a person will go mad. They will. Because they're stuck. But they're not the only ones. When a person gathers information, meanwhile life is coming at you with different responsibilities, different things, and you're not practicing the Dhamma, you just keep it on superficial level. Paying lip service, we say in English. It will drive you insane eventually because you are fighting with yourself. On one hand, you know that there's some truth here, but because you have not taken this medicine, you will not heal. I had one professor years ago, over 30 years ago, in Los Angeles. He would say, and he himself did not practice, and he would say that he's not a practitioner, but he knew pretty much the commentaries, the sub-commentaries, the tikas, sub-commentaries. He knew who wrote them, this and that. A brilliant mind in that sense. He was a library of knowledge. And one day, I think one of us asked him, Professor, his name was Guruge, very well known. Somebody asked him, Professor, are you a practitioner? Do you practice all this? And he's like, he laughed and he said, you know, I'm that sort of a person who goes to the doctor and for an ailment, and the doctor has given me a prescription, and I go to, in America we have Kinko's, or places where you go and print and laminate and enlarge prints, things. And I've enlarged the prescription and laminated it, and I've been carrying it over my head, saying that I have the cure. I'm cured, basically. But I'm just carrying the prescription, a laminated version of the prescription. It's like a billboard I'm carrying. Many of us are doing that, thinking that we're practicing. You go through the routines, go through the motions, as we say, right? You go, do your dana, do your pujas, do this and that, fine. It's very mechanistic, ritualistic, dead as far as the Dhamma is concerned. Sooner or later, you're going to crack. Because when life comes at your door knocking, and you're not using Dhamma there and then, you realize that the Dhamma is futile, is useless actually. Not that the Dhamma is useless, but you're not applying it. You're carrying the prescription of the medication that will heal you over your head. Or walking around with the menu and saying, yes, I'm fulfilled, I'm satiated. It's the menu, it's ink on paper. I don't care how many retreats you've done. I don't care about your CV of teachers you've had. Oh, I've studied with Maha Sayadaw, I've studied here, I've studied there. I've said, okay, then what happened? Why are you here with another bhikkhu? Where did all that get you? Are you an arahant yet? Sotapanna at least? Something, give me something. Have you gotten anything? Nothing? So are you here also to gather some more stuff from this bhikkhu now? Many people are doing that. There's no urgency, because you just need this much, actually this much, of Dhamma. That's why when we read from the Dhammapada verses in the morning, you don't need to know all the texts, just enough. Just enough. So I hope that answers your question, and now it's time for, let's see how many we can have. Good day, Bhante. Each time I read the Aneka Jati Gata, tears flow. Bhante, please, out of compassion, elaborate further the Gata. It's a beautiful set of verses. For each, it has a different meaning based on your own understanding. For years I thought it was Maha, the house builder. Gahakara kaditosi puna gehan kahasi. From now on, you're not going to build me any more houses. That's Lord Buddha's words. So you would think, because you've studied, enlightenment, awakening of the Buddha and the Maha, all those things. Many people imagine it was an actual being that showed up and there was this thing, like. Those were the very last of the kileshas in Lord Buddha. Well, before he's becoming a Buddha still, it's in the process. But we can personify it in the form of Maha. So for such a long time I used to think that it was Maha we're referring to here. Gahakaraka, house builder. Until I actually got more and more into the teachings of the late Venerable Arahant, now we can say, because he has passed on. Venerable Bhante Jnanananda, who most people don't consider, who don't even look at, because he lived in a kuti, in a cave actually, in Sri Lanka. He was persecuted. He used to be, pushed out of monasteries because he just challenged the status quo. He just challenged the Visuddhimagga, challenged Venerable Buddhaghosa, challenged the Abhidhamma. All that tradition which exists in the Theravada tradition, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma. He just went back to the suttas. He said, we're putting too much credence in the commentaries. Why? Many of these commentaries, in fact, they are altering. They are nitpicking, cherry-picking the suttas to make them fit their own conclusions. Because he would just go back and he says, this is why I say this. And then with his help, I came to look and have a better appreciation of sanya. Sanya is, if you remember, panchakhandas, the 5 aggregates. So long as there is the dominance of sanya, meaning you are a slave to your concepts. Yesterday I was talking about not being, or this morning, not being slaves to our thoughts, believing in our thoughts. That's what we are dealing with. We are constantly building houses for us with the concepts we have, thoughts we have. Building. House builder. Perception. Sanya viratassa nisanti gantha, Lord Buddha says. For the one who has walked away from perception, from its dominance, there cannot be any bonds, any fetters, any shackles. Panya vimuttassa nisanti moha. For the person who has liberated oneself through wisdom, panya vimuttassa, there cannot be moha, any kind of delusion. It was so essential for Lord Buddha to point this out. And that is at the crux of the problem. Our reliance on sanya constantly. Thoughts are so powerful and detrimental in the practice. That's one of the reasons why people go crazy. Now that doesn't mean that Lord Buddha was nullifying the importance of sanya. Of course not. Middle path, remember? We use sanya to break free from sanya. Yes? The same thing with vidya. You need to apply vidya just the right amount. Otherwise you'll burn yourself. Too much energy is going to make you restless when you're sitting. Your mind is going to be restless, whether you like it or not, because there's too much heat, too much vidya. Lower the heat, otherwise the souffle will burn. In less than 45 minutes, it will burn. So watch out, have a responsibility. Yes, don't open the oven door, but pay attention, take ownership. So, without going too much into the gatha of Aneka Jati, I will leave it at that and share that much. And the rest of the journey, I leave it up to the questioner for you to discover. Because it's a wonderful sutta. And that's why I opted for us not reciting it together. I find it a lot more juicy, a lot more beneficial if each of us could ponder the lines and the words on our own before we leave, or throughout the day, if you could just recite it. Dear Bhante Candana, when I meditated for nearly an hour, I noticed that my body, waist up, within parentheses, seems to be pushing forward. In short, burst over and over again. I am not drowsy, but my body seems to tilt forward, like it is trying to get a release. Is this my chi circulating and trying to get out? Could be. They're called vayu, or winds. But it also has a lot to do with the lack of sati, basically. When sati is not there, you're just allowing the body to move in any way, in shape or form. I had a teacher once, and Vipassana teacher, and he had been invited to go, I think, to Taiwan. And while he was there, there was a Tai Chi master who said, I want to basically see if you can feel my chi. So initially the teacher was not interested, and then finally some people persuaded him, and he was. And one of the things that in Tai Chi they do, if you're familiar with, is push hands. So they do like this. But in this case, what the Tai Chi master, I guess, wanted to do was just to push him from his dantian, which is like around the waist area, just like this. And tried and tried and tried. This gentleman tried to push the meditation teacher. He couldn't. He just stood there. So you have to be convinced of being moved. If your sati is like diamond, so tight, it's so packed, it's so present, nothing can budge you. Not even these vayus or these winds or what this person is calling chi. I noticed that the moment there is sati, it's impossible for your body, because you're aware before it's triggered in the body, because your mind must allow it. And because your sati is not there, there's no chance that kaya anupassana is going to allow it to happen, because your awareness is so strong. And it has to develop to that level where 4 satipatthanas are being followed through, and they flow into each other. They flow into each other. Kaya anupassana will unfold into Vedana anupassana. Vedana anupassana will unfold into Chitta anupassana. Chitta anupassana will unfold into Dhamma anupassana. And they will merge. Because it's organic. It's organic. So I hope that answers that question. All right. Well, okay. 1:30 to 2:30, this 1 hour, is it for personal time and practice too? Personal time, are we allowed to go back to the dormitory to refresh? Every time, every moment is practice time. Whether you're going to the dormitory, you're going to the bathroom to freshen up, it's practice time. That's why you're on retreat. You're not taking a time out. The time out ended when you walked in. You put on the white robes. So it's not a chore. It's like it's like being at a job. It's like, okay, boss, can I have like a longer lunch break type of a thing? Can I get off the time clock? It's not like that. So use every moment. In fact, if you really want to push the envelope, can you take sati with you to sleep? Many people would say, thank goodness, now I can shut my eyes and go to sleep. Opportunities being missed. Take sati with you if you can, because it will go there if you allow it. If you allow it. There are meditators who will have sati throughout the sleep. They will not break sila, for example. It's impossible for them. It's like being awake. They are awake as if. And in fact, They will even have insights in their sleep. Insights. They will identify what are kileshas and what are not. That's impossible if they don't have sati. That's a person who has said there's no limits to where sati will flow into. Everywhere, every nook and cranny in my life is going to get my alertness, my awareness. That's what Lord Buddha said. He didn't say, okay guys, from this moment until this time, just do that. Just do practice sila, samadhi, panya during these hours. Those hours are okay. You can go crazy. Never such things. So whether it's 1:30 to 2:30 or 3:30 to 4, whatever it is, if your body's still, personal time, I am not too rigid, I will tell you that. Somebody some time ago in the Buddhist world thought to themselves, oh, we're going to divide it into 1 hour walking, 1 hour sitting, 1 hour walking, 1 hour sitting. That's lazy. A lazy way of breaking down the retreat. Lazy. I believe in the individual taking responsibility of their behavior. No one's there standing on you like in some cases in some monasteries in Thailand or Myanmar. They would, some bhikkhu or novice monk will have a stick. Yes, they will run after people who are hiding. They will drag you out of your cell, out of your kuti. And they will come, their job is, I hope they have some sati themselves, their job is to look around like an investigator to see, okay, where is she? Where is he? Okay. And they will go on a wild goose chase. They will go looking for you on the grounds. Where are you? And then they will beat you, drag you back if you resist. They will scold you. Really? So there isn't that thing. And there's no benefit necessarily between, this type of a format, which took me a lot to organize, by the way. And it's not perfect, of course, but we have to be flexible also. And I have to give you the time and the ability to become more natural in the flow of things, but while still maintaining the integrity of it being a retreat. For that reason, if you notice, I say sometimes in there, either walking or sitting meditation. It's not rigid. Some places, if you've ever done any retreats elsewhere, it has to be 1 hour. And there's a bell. Everybody's longing, dying for the bell to ring. Before, like half an hour or even 55 minutes before it rings, 5 minutes into it. It's a fight. Where's the Dhamma in that? So this way you're more, okay, it's up to me. Of course, you all have to be here at 5:30. You all have to be here during the Sutta discussion. And the sitting, the group sitting after the morning chanting, you have to be here. But that doesn't mean those are the only times you have to be here. Now, sometimes your back aches and the other adjustments, modifications you've tried are not cutting it. Okay, I've encouraged some of you today to do walking meditation. Okay? And sometimes in the morning, it's tough. It's tough to sit, okay? Or at night, you want to sit longer. And if that virya comes up, and it's a gift, if it ever comes up in you, you know what, I'm gonna sit all night today, or I'm gonna push myself to sit as long as humanly possible for me. Don't be afraid of going there. Muscles grow because you push them slowly, slowly, slowly. Those are also your limitations that you're overcoming. You will not die if you don't sleep one night. You will not die. Okay? So, but I'm not saying go ahead and do it. If the intention comes up, it's a beautiful gift. Trust it, go with it. Now, while you're doing that, sometimes it's very difficult to be sitting in a room all by yourself. And if you are, please be mindful of the lights and all that. So we've talked about that. But it might be better for you to do walking meditation. And I've advised a few of you today, if you're really struggling with sloth, with drowsiness or laziness, but you're still desiring to push, but your body seems to not be agreeing with that, go ahead and do walking backwards in a straight line. Don't go in circles because you might fall off somewhere. So just do it in a straight line, okay? Whether you like it or not, your eyes are just going to be, you're extremely cognizant when you're taking a step backwards. You don't want to fall, you don't want to, you're always alert. That really bumps up your sati tenfold. And you don't have to do it the whole time. You do that for a few minutes and already you're awake. And then you just go back to normal, to walking. Or, especially when your legs get stiff or numb, use the steps, the stairs. You have a few stairs here, but you have stairs down here. And you also have stairs over there at the end of the hall. But at night, they don't have all the lights on. You can't, okay. So you can use those because that's also going to pump some oxygen back into your brain and your muscles are going to get active and you're going to wake up. So there are these things. Don't just give up from the first sign that, oh, I can't do this, I'm sleepy. No, you're here on a retreat, come on. You know, it has to mean something. So, one more question.
Bhante, with regard to your question on your comments on walking meditation, I would like to get that purpose and objective of walking. Is it in the level of finding balance in ourselves or focus on our steps? Because like many of the times when we do walking meditation, we are looking at left, right, or lifting, moving, dropping. But when I look at the sutta and I recall what Bhante Punaji told me, he actually gave a very good analogy of what the Buddha shared. The Buddha said that when you are doing walking meditation, it is like walking with a pot of oil on your head. And notwithstanding that, you're walking across a line where you have a few very beautiful dancers dancing, and the oil in the head should never drop. And if it were to drop, just remember there's a man holding a sword.
Sharp.
Yeah, waiting to chop your head off. So what is it? Is it actually to look at the steps, gracefully move and look at your body, or to actually seek balance?
Just a minor clarification on that sutta. Lord Buddha gave the example of not just, not several maidens or beautiful women or whatever. It was just one. And she happened to be in the center of the town square. So this is an analogy, this is a story that Lord Buddha is giving to point out the level of sati that needs to be there. And it was not about just the walking. It wasn't about the walking. In the simile, in the metaphor, it is the person walking with the oil over his head, and there's a person who's just dying to chop off the person's head. Just a tiny little spill, that's enough. And there are people who have gathered to watch this beautiful, famous, most whatever lady perform her dancing. And there's a crowd. That means the crowd is not going to necessarily give you an open path to go walking towards, and the person is going to walk towards her. And the mind is going to say, hey, look, 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 just a glimpse, come on. It's okay, no one can see. She's the most beautiful woman in the whole country. She's there. And look at these people. So you have all these things working, but it definitely comes out when you are doing walking meditation. Why? Suddenly, the tiniest little, minuscule, most meaningless thing becomes, whoa, look at that. There's a dot on the ground. It's like that tattoo of the person's ankle, right? All of a sudden, whoa. I was once doing a retreat up in the mountains in California, and it was like a lodge. They had rented this portion of an old lodge that Hollywood people used to go in the 40s, 50s. So now it was converted to like a rental place where people could just use it as, on retreats. So we were allowed to walk in these rooms. It wasn't designed for meditation. It was very Western, like chalet type of a thing, cabins type. So there was space for me to walk inside because it was getting cold sometimes, raining and all that. So there were some photographs of some famous people over the years, decades, that were taken in the history of this establishment. So suddenly I noticed as I'm doing the walking meditation, my eyes are saying, hey, look, turn, just look over there. It's just like, oh, look at the frame of this picture. Oh, look at I wonder which movie he was in. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's what the mind does, but still those are pretty extravagant examples. Sometimes it's just a scratch on a wall or a pattern. Suddenly your mind is very eagerly attentive to explore that. That's not walking meditation. But again, the meditation happens when you turn the gaze upon the mind that wants to do that. So even the tendency of the mind to veer off and look at something as banal as that itself becomes the object of meditation. So all these elaborate metaphors and similes that Lord Buddha would give are simply to intensify the urgency. The man with the sharp knife over the head waiting to just cut it is simply an example or a metaphor for having samvega. So, if you're walking as if this is the very last walk, the very last 10 steps of your life, you will not take those 10 steps as if, there's another set coming up on the way back. You don't have that luxury. You've convinced yourself that this is it. That's why when you look in the eyes of an awakened person, they're so present. If you look into the eyes of an arahant, into Venerable Sariputta, for example, they're so present. They're there. They're not going to be looking at the damsel or the maiden over there in the center of the square. They don't care. They're locked on. They're locked on. That's why they don't believe in concepts. By the way, the thing that your eye sees is collecting, just like you collect groceries at the supermarket. To do what? To make something with it. When you're collecting these impressions, you're trying to do what? Create newer and newer sannyas, newer papanchas. You're feeding the system. That's why we go in a straight line. In some retreats, I've seen people go in a circle, in an X, in an S. They go around mats. I was like, what are you doing? It's interesting. They're bored to bits. They want to add some zest, some excitement. Some excitement. So I highly recommend Bhante Jnanananda's Walking to Nibbana book. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to narrate it, but I did for him after he passed away. So it's up on YouTube. It's a wonderful, wonderful book, and it's very down to earth. He even gets into this specifics like the distance of, what's a good distance, like 60 feet or 20 feet or whatever it is. how to walk, and also the recommendation is you do, this is usually in a monastery, if you are doing a walking meditation, it's always good to have a chair. In the case of forest monks, it's good to have something like a shed, an open shed, at the end of the walkway. Because the idea is, when you do walk, eventually your mind is going to get so stable that it will want to sit. There's such a strong, powerful sense of stability, and the samadhi is so strong. And the walking becomes also a hindrance. At that moment, it's a perfect time for you to go and sit. Right there. And you do see that sometimes in some places. They have that. And he recommends that. So, yeah, there's more things to be said about that, but don't complicate it. Now, the other thing is, do you have to do, let's say, 1 hour of walking? Not necessarily. Do you have to get up and do walking? Sometimes, some places, they force you to. You don't. What if the person has gone deep? You're really deep. Suddenly the bell rings and you have to get up and walk. You're ruining the sit. Now, that doesn't mean that a person cannot become an arahant while walking. There have been people who have attained while walking. There aren't that many, but they have. Also, there have been individuals who have attained arahantship while standing. So, and we know that from, especially from Ajahn Mun's report on that phenomena, I guess. One more, or are you? Is it okay for me to do one more? Okay, I know you're, some of you are pushing it. So, tea and refreshments. Can we take the biscuits to eat and make a cup of beverage? Can we take the biscuits to eat and make a cup of beverage? Huh? There's tea and biscuits in there, I'm presuming, right? You can. Oh, you mean in the hall? No. In the hall, you cannot bring it here if that's the intention. To bring it in the...
Unless they're talking about mixing, to turning it into a drink rather than eating or drinking.
You can, of course. I mean, if that's what you like.
After 12? Or after lunch?
Oh, after 12, you mean? I see. Sorry, my mind, it's like it's there. Yes. If it has the need, I mean, if you have a stomach problem, if it is creating a hindrance, if the stomach is growling at you and is becoming a problem, or you're feeling nauseous, yes, you can. But don't turn it into a routine. Like, okay, it's my, as they say in Australia, cuppa and a bicky, right? In some places, you don't have, no. Chocolate is allowed. I don't know if they're serving chocolate, if they have chocolate. So chocolate is okay. Even in the most stringent, monasteries, I've seen chocolate being served. In fact, one place I've been to, they brought out a big container. We call it, like in America, like Costco size, big. And they had plethora of chocolate bars. Pick one. So just be responsible. Okay, because at the time of Lord Buddha, in the beginning years, people were eating at night as well. The reason why these rules came about is because people were abusing it. Rules were placed because to avoid suffering. People were abusing it. They were showing up in the middle of the village, monks, at night, because they were too bored, or they were hungry. They were trying to feed, and that was probably second, third, fourth visit to the village that day, because there's free food. So there was supposed to be a rule, regulation placed there because people were abusing it. And also, if you eat a lot, you won't go deep. So the stomach has to be rested. Even when you're eating normal, like during lunch or breakfast, don't stuff yourself with food. Walk away with a portion of it left in the plate. And today's nutritionists also say the same thing. So I hope that answers the question, and we'll stop. Yeah. And we, sometimes we forget that the jet lag is pretty severe for some of you. And by the way, if I haven't mentioned it now, I'll mention it. A few of you have flown here, and the jet lag is there. It's pretty amazing that you're able to withstand my voice for so many hours after sitting for so long. So during the day, if you feel you need to retire, just go and take a nap. Please do. So don't force yourself, okay? I'm not, you already know what kind of a teacher I am, so I'm not going to be like, I'm definitely not going to run after you with a stick. So, but be doing it with, take your, hold the hand of Sati with you to bed, to your pillow. And when you wake up, have Sati there with you. Okay, and don't say, okay, I'm going to sleep the rest of the day when it's like 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. or something. I once, when I was doing a long sit throughout the night, and I was doing it repeatedly, a few nights back to back, the teacher who was running the retreat, he was kind enough to say, go and rest. And I hadn't heard anyone say that. And I so appreciated that. And I was surprised to hear it, basically. So it really helped me. And I went to my room and I slept for about an hour. And I was so refreshed. So it's amazing. Sometimes even half an hour can really help you. So please don't torture yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. But try to be here for the suttas. But in the afternoon, that could also be fitting into the personal time. Okay? So let's transfer some merits. Akasata chabumata devana gamahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasata chabumata devana gamahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasata chabumata devana gamahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.